So get ready to take your notes, okay? Okay? So give them a hand.
Excuse me.
Okay. Well, listen, first I want to thank everybody for coming out here on this beautiful day. It's gray and everything, but life is good. I want to talk to you a little bit. I guess people always ask me, what do I do? And I make people smile. And I enjoy it. And one of the things I want to talk to these guys about today is, how many persons have ever been on a diet? Anybody ever been on a diet? And how did that work out?
It's working.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. So what I want to say to you is this. A lot of times we say we're going to go on a diet, right? We might have some motivation to lose weight, to look better, to do certain things. But what a lot of us don't realize is you don't go on a diet. A diet is what you consume. Now think about this. You're not just what you eat. You're what you eat eats.
You're what?
You are what you eat eats. Let that sink in for a minute. So now, our diet is what we consume. So how many ways do we consume? We ingest food. We have conversations with people. We watch different forms of media. We do our exercise or lack thereof. These are all forms of consumption. We have our spiritual self to take care of. We have our mental things that we have to do. We have to learn, study, read. All of these things are consumption. These are all part of our diet. So many times we're working on an area, say we're trying to lose weight or we're trying to get smart or whatever, and we're doing this one area of consumption, but we're missing the other 5. Now, Marcus and I, we've had this conversation before. We don't watch the news. It's just, and the reason I say that is, when you look at the news, let's just take the local news in particular. Most of the news is based on fear. Let's go, for example, here in Atlanta, you've got Channel 2, right? And their weather is called severe weather, right? So how many days in Atlanta is actually severe weather? What, 4 or 5 days, sometimes in the springtime when the warm weather comes up against the cold weather, we get those windy days, and then sometimes we have tornadoes and stuff like that. Okay, great. 5, 6 days out of the year, and we call the weather severe weather. So what does that invoke when you hear severe weather? You're just like, oh my gosh, something's gonna happen, right? No. Okay. So a lot of times we have to consider what we're ingesting. Again, the news. Now, Mark Twain said that a man that doesn't read the news is uninformed, and a man that does watch the news is misinformed. I didn't make that up, but you get the gist of it. So even though I don't watch the news now, and there are some very good news programs out there, and if you're going to watch news, obviously just something like NPR or Link TV, Democracy Now!, things like that, which don't have a news that's sort of slanted by someone that has something to gain, so to speak. But when you start cutting that out of your diet, then you're already cutting out a lot of fear. And one thing you have to think about, fear works on our limbic response system. What's our limbic response system? Our limbic response system is one of our primal responses. And what that invokes in us is when you come into a situation, you're going to do one of three things. If something comes at you, you're going to either freeze, fight, or run. You've heard fight or flight, but it's freeze, flight, or run. Those are things that will happen, and that's just a natural instinct that we have. Part of the first law that God gave us was self-preservation, okay? Because if you do not preserve yourself, then you'll have to continue on in the next reiteration of yourself. But what happens when you continually keep a person in a state of fear, they're just reacting. So you're either going to run, you're going to freeze, or you're going to fight. And those are just basic reactions that we have, but they're not where you use your best self, your mind. You're not using the thoughts to think down the road. Because right now, it's immediate. And so when you're, I don't know I've done a lot of driving and done driving for security and things like that, and race driving and things like that. And one of the things that you do when you're driving is you have to actually look down the road. When you're in, say, if you ever get on an interstate, and this is an aside, but there's one place where there's no speed limit on our interstates here in the U.S. That's on the entrance ramp. Just so you know, so if you ever really want to just get out there and go,
Got it.
yeah, you can. And you know, when you're trying to, and it's sort of the same thing in life. When you're trying to get onto the expressway, and the traffic is moving at 70 miles an hour, and you're moving at 45, that makes for a very uncomfortable merge. So you have to get up to speed to get in where you fit in, okay? I'm just throwing that out there for free. But now, when you're and you're driving, when you look ahead, you can actually see more in your mind than you do as you're driving. For instance, when you're driving and you're just looking at the car in front of you, you're reacting. Short-term reaction, okay? But when you're looking down 3-4 cars or even a block down the road, then you see the brake lights up ahead. So now I know I should be able to start stopping now so that I don't have to just hit my brakes and things like that. But when you're looking in the short term, you're in that reactionary fear, flight, or freeze kind of thing. So you have to expand your vision in order to see things that are going to come at you. And that reduces the fear factor, you see? Because as we're being fed fear through the media, we're being fed fear through just a lot of our daily interactions. And when you start sitting back and thinking about it, you're like, man, how does that make me feel when I hear this or I see this or whatever? Does it make me feel good? And if it doesn't, stop doing it. That's one really easy way to go about your life. Now, I'm not telling you that you're going to be able to get away from all that, because this is the real world that we live in. But it's only as real as we allow it to be. You see, because it's not a good life, it's not a bad life. It is our life, but it is, as Marcus said, it's our thoughts that make it so. So now, we're saying, all right, here I am. I've decided that I'm not going to consume this mass media madness. When I wake up every morning, what I used to have to do is I would have this balm that I would put on. I used to have to lather it up. I called it my madness repellent. Now I'd have to get that and put it on, and then go out and deal with the world. Well, now I've got to where I got a little spray, so I put my little madness repellent on and go out, because you'll find that what you think about is going to be what you attract. Because one of the things, you don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. So when you wake up in the morning and you start thinking about just the things that you have that you can be grateful for, like waking up, having a bed to wake up in, being able to use warm running water, having a sanitation system that works where you don't have to take the bucket out or look in the outhouse and make sure there's no snake in there before you sit down. When you have these kinds of things and you're thankful for those, you gratitude, you will start to see more things come in that you can be grateful for. Conversely, if you wake up and you say, man, I really don't feel good, this is a terrible day, it's gray, I can't even see the sun and all these things, you'll find yourself into a downward spiral. So you have to use your thoughts, as Marcus said, to make your now better, okay? So you start doing that. So now you're saying, okay, I'm taking care of my thoughts. Now you're taking care of your food, your intake. Now I've been a vegetarian now. It's about 24 years now. And I tell people, I'm a vegetarian for me. I'm not trying to save any dolphins, whales, or trees. The only animal I'm trying to save is me. I'm doing this because I want to stay on the planet long enough. So I tell people, don't become a vegetarian just because somebody says be a vegetarian. Because what I found, 99%, I've run across a lot of people who said, I was a vegetarian once. Okay. But I can tell you, in about 96% of the time of persons that said that they were a vegetarian, here's what happened. One, they tried to do that, not necessarily for themselves, but for their mate. And again, like Marcus said, that's a very important thing. But you don't ever want to make a change for somebody else. Case in point, somebody says, I like long hair. Okay, great. So you let your hair grow long or whatever, and then they decide they like short hair, or conversely, So now you change for that. Well, it's just going to be a short-lived thing, and every time they decide that they're going to have a different preference, you're going to change yourself for that? No, that's not going to work. It's not going to be a long-lasting thing. So a lot of times when we're making these changes for someone else, it's not going to be of a great benefit to you because you're not doing it for yourself. So the other thing that has happened in persons that were trying to become vegetarians was this. They would go from, we all pretty much ate what our parents fed us, okay? And I want you to think about this on several levels. We all consumed what our parents fed us. Mm-hmm. All right, so that went at the dinner table, that went with our finances, that went with our religion, that went with our interactions with our family, friends, and neighbors. All these things were put into us from our parents. Now, our parents, and all of us, a lot of us in here are parents, and you all know that there is no manual for being a parent. It is on-the-job training, okay? And so we do the best that we can with what we know. But when you know better, you do better. So I'm going back to the food thing. And what I found is a lot of people were going from eating pretty much anything that moved to saying, I'm going to stop eating everything and I'm just going to eat rabbit food, okay? Well, there's a problem with that. Now, I'll tell you how that works. One is, if you've been cooking and eating everything that moves, and now all of a sudden you say, all I'm going to do is eat vegetation, one of the things that you don't know is how to substitute for the lack of those other things, okay? And so, like myself now, I did mine in stages. I stopped eating pork in '83 and saw how that worked with my body. And then I stopped eating red meat in '85 and saw how that worked. And then I stopped eating poultry in '89 and then seafood in '92. But all along the way, I cooked also. But I knew how, when I stopped making or eating a certain thing, I could always expand my menu with other things. So when we're giving up certain things in our life, we've got to try to do that in a stage or in a process that will allow you to fill the gap, so to speak. Because if you have a bad habit, it says it takes 21 days to break a bad habit. But one of the things that you must do when you're breaking a bad habit is you're creating a void, but you got to fill it with something else positive to reinforce the lack of something, okay? So that's how we help ourselves. So, you know, a person that said, man, I'm gonna stop smoking. Okay, great. But now you have to figure out what was it that when you're giving up the smoking, what is the other part of it, the smoking? Because it's not just necessarily the smoking part that you have, but you got to figure out what is the other part of that, and what can I do to continue to so I won't go back to that. Okay. So there's a lot of different things that we consume, and we get a lot of information from many different sources. But how do we maintain a positive outlook on all these different things? And it goes back again to our thoughts. Marcus has just nailed it again and again. Our thoughts are what make our reality. So we have to work on our thoughts, maintain positive thoughts, and then when we start looking at all the different things that we're consuming, when we look at them with a positive mindset and go with that, what do you want to call it? You can call it intuition, the inner self, or whatever. But I will tell you that most all of us know when something is right and when something is wrong. We know. Doesn't mean we always do that, because it's just like driving again. You driving down the street right here in Atlanta, and I tell people in Atlanta, there's one thing that you have to understand about Atlanta driving. In most places, you can make 3 lefts and it makes a right. You'll come back around to where you started. That first one you might be okay. That second one, yeah, you might be back. Third one, you might end up in Alabama or something. What? So you have to sit there and say to yourself, all right, how can I pay attention enough so that I will be able to discern? And so it's just like driving. Sometimes you're driving and you're in a hurry or whatever, and you go, man, I should have made that right there. And sure enough, you get up to the next block, traffic is stopped, you can't get in, can't get out, and you're stuck. But your first mind, that self told you what you should have done, but a lot of times we don't pay that attention. When we start tuning into ourselves, then we will start making better decisions. Because everything that we need is within us. We've had a lot of information, we've consumed a lot of information, and the right information is in there, but we've got to filter a lot of it out. And so we get better at it as we continue to think in a positive manner. As we start thinking about how, as Marcus said, what happens if I don't do this? Okay? We start filtering the information that we're getting in. What's the benefit of this that I'm getting right now? And it's okay to doubt everything that you've ever learned. Think about this. At one time, not so long ago, persons thought that the earth was flat. You sailed far enough, you were going to fall off the edge. Well, the earth has always been round. And so, you know, we have to think about a lot of the information that we have. It goes back thousands of years. But does that make it right? Maybe, maybe not. But when you learn to question things, just like what I'm telling you now, don't take it for what I'm telling you. Question it. Say, man, Tony, what are you talking about? But when you question things, you start getting answers. And it goes back again to when you ask questions, where do you get that feeling? Is that right or is that wrong? There's a couple of books that, I don't know if anybody's ever familiar with a book called Power versus Force. You know, I want to check that out. It's an excellent book. But there are many different ways for you to actually not just think whether something is wrong, but determine without fail whether it's wrong. But I'm not going to get into that. But Power versus Force, just look that one up. Again, when we're looking at our consumption, we've got so many different areas that we're consuming, but we have to use some discernment in what we're ingesting. And when we start taking care of all those different areas, then our diet is going to get better. Because again, our diet is what we consume. And so there's so many areas that we have, but we can all become more mindful of it when we start thinking about it. You see, when we start thinking, man, okay, now I can cut out certain things, and it's not going to hurt me by not watching as much of this or that, or by eating as much of this and that. But when we start doing that, we're going to live a better life now. Because right now is actually the only time that we have. Because the past is gone, and we can never change that. And there's one day that we never get to, and that's tomorrow. Because every time you've ever done anything, it's been right now, today. So don't worry about tomorrow, because you're never going to get to tomorrow. You're going to always be right here and right now. So as long as you stay present and looking at life, and I'm going to close on this, but if we look at the past, a lot of times it brings up a lot of regrets and things. And when you start living in the future, then you have anxiety. But I want to ask each and every one of you, right now, in this present moment, what's wrong? Nothing. So you stay present, be mindful of the different things that you're consuming, the different areas, and use your inner wisdom, your inner self, and you'll make much better decisions, and you'll live a much better life. I want to thank these guys for coming out, and